in the physical security space. This is Pankaj Gupta from EthAum Partners. We are a deep tech revenue accelerator and fund based out of Singapore with approximately 100 portfolio startups. We are fortunate to have these startups from different parts of the world, different sectors, different stages, anywhere from seed to Series B kind of stages. Digital Keys is one of the portfolio startups that we recently onboarded in our July 2023 cohort, and they are solving the problem of physical security space. So they work with many physical security leaders in different parts of the world, and that's the reason that we wanted to host this thought leadership panel on innovations driving the physical security space. Steve, why don't we start with a brief introduction from your side, and then we can dive into the panel discussion. But before that, we will request our panelists to do a brief intro of themselves. So, Steve, please go ahead.
Sure. So, brief introduction to our company, Digital Keys. So, around about 5 years ago, we got an R&D grant from the European Commission, and we got the attention of Vodafone and Huawei, who invited us into their NBOT lab just outside of London at Vodafone's headquarters. And then about 6 months later, we came out with our first prototype. Then we went over to the Huawei Shenzhen lab, did some more testing and more certification, came out with a commercial ready NBOT door lock in mid-2019. We manufactured about 1,000 units and sold them to offices, hotels, sporting clubs, banks, universities. And then the trade war hit, which meant basically that Vodafone could no longer sell us SIMs and connectivity while we were interfacing to Huawei's platform and had Huawei chipset in our products. So for the last 3 years, we've been on a journey basically migrating away from Huawei and over to AWS, and we're now working with a virtual mobile network operator with SIM cards in our smart locks. You can see a couple over my shoulder here in our padlocks, which gives us connections to 40 mobile operators in 40 countries out of the box. So yeah, we're excited that we've just recently launched 2 new products and getting them out there on the market.
Thanks a lot, Steve. And obviously, we will have more discussion on the product, and we will get the feedback from the panelists on the solution, on the go-to-market strategies, and things of that nature in the roast session. But before diving into that, Kevin, may I request you to do a brief intro, please?
Yeah, so Kevin Thomas, Cisco Vice President of Environmental Health, Safety, Physical Security, and Asset Protection. My verticals are responsible for, one, maintaining a safe environment, as well as protecting our, our assets, from our colleagues to our inventory to just our physical assets in general from an enterprise perspective. My background is initially started out in the policing industry, migrated over to retail and manufacturing, which has led me to Cisco. So I'm glad to be a part of the panel.
Wow, thanks a lot, Kevin. That's a very diverse set of experiences that you have had in your professional life. Really appreciate your time today. Pradeep, may I request you to do a brief intro, please?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me onto the panel. So I'm currently the new head of DES, so that's Design and System Solutions. Basically anything sort of not turnkey. It's sort of my place to find a complex solution and put that in there. Very similar to the locks we were just shown by Steve. So thank you for that. A bit of my background. It's a bit broad. So starting off with the excuse me, with the British military, I was a radio operator. So 3 tours in Iraq. After that, I then ran security measures for Securitas, Reliance, basically man guarding for teams across the entire UK. After that, I then went on to diplomatic protection for the British government in Russia and then China. And then after that, I moved to Singapore, developed some of the first long-range military stealth drones, and we held the world record. I think we might still hold that for flight time. And then after that, moved into something you all may have heard of called the metaverse. And I actually founded the first legally defined global network metaverse. And we do an awful lot of physical security sort of blogs and advice on that metaverse, so people can see that and hopefully get some good advice there. And then, of course, now I've moved back into the mainstream, and again, I develop advanced systems, the bread and butter sort of systems for companies here in Singapore, and that's for Ademco. Sorry, a bit long-winded there, but thank you.
Thanks a lot, Christopher, for the introduction. Pradeep, may I request you to do a brief intro, please?
Sure, Pankaj. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me as a panel member to this wonderful event. And I've been in the security industry for now around 27 years. Initially, as others have told, even I was in the military space. I was in the Indian Air Force for 20 years of my career, initial career. So I've been in the police department. So that helps me, again, to be connected with the physical security part, even though being in the defense force. So getting out from the Air Force, I joined World Trade Center here in Bangalore. Then I went to Texas Instruments, then Intel, and after which I am working in this present company called GoTo, which again based out of Boston. I'm leading the global security operations as well as physical security for the company.
Fantastic.
That's a brief about me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Pradeep. Really appreciate it. And we have Major Subish with us. Major Subish, would you please do a brief intro?
Hi, sorry, I'm driving. Actually, I misjudged the time. Sorry. So my name is. You can hear me loud and clear, right?
Yeah, we can hear you well. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So my name is Major Subish. Yeah, Pradeep and me, we know because of the city, common city, and also some ASIS platforms where we meet each other. So to go about I'm from a military background. By the rank, everybody can judge that. I was with the bomb squad, almost 6 years, short service commission. I served only in the borders. I specialized in canine squads, which can detect various types of explosives. With my background, because I'm a vet, and then after coming out of army, I joined manufacturing sector. Then I was briefly with the banking sector. Then currently I am in one of the largest BPOs, which is US based, called Concentrix. I take care of the physical security as whole and soul for the south of India and also for the ASEAN countries. The domain of physical security involves both physical security as well as the surveillance and the access control and all the latest technologies which we can use to prevent physical data breach, not the digital data breach I'm speaking about, physical data breach. So that's where our role becomes very critical in today's BPO scenario. That's all about myself. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Major Subish. Hopefully we are able to see you also pretty soon once we're done with the driving. But yeah, again, really appreciate everybody's time today. And I know that Steve has a bunch of interesting questions for him that he wants to get insights from the expert panelist. So Steve, why don't we start with the first question that you have with you?
Sure, absolutely. So first question that I have is this. So as a physical security leader, what are your biggest challenges and frustrations? So I thought perhaps we could start with Dr. Major if the traffic's not too busy where you are right now.
Yeah, I'm okay. I can speak. That's okay. So the major challenge or the frustrating point for physical security person today is the whole lot of pressure to reduce this guarding manpower and rely on technology. Now, when I speak about technology, everybody speaks about access control, smart cameras, AI systems. But there is nothing absolute perfect technology which can replace a guard. Because in my sector, like example, if I am supporting a banking client, if the PCI standard, that is payment credit card industry standard, says that you are not supposed to take out the data of the last 4 digits or the last 6 digits of the credit card of the client. So somebody, if there is not guarding, definitely agent or a client, the customer service officer who is working is able to take out that data. So there is no technology which can prevent him from taking that data unless I post a guard. So which today's delivery leaders are not able to understand that. They work on cost pressures, and because of which they say that, put a turnstile, put access control. How can they take, check them in the common areas? Why you want to have in specific delivery areas? So for me, the biggest frustrating point is comparing a guard with a surveillance camera, so that's the most frustrating point for me.
Okay, great. That's really interesting because, yeah, obviously automations and using computers to replace human beings is affecting every industry, including physical security. So, yeah, it might be interesting to explore that concept a bit more. I'm sure it'll come up a bit more as we go along. So, yeah, can I ask the same question now to Kevin? So, frustrations and challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I think first and foremost, I'll stick to challenges, right? We all have frustrations, but I'll stick to challenges. I think challenges are one, because of Cisco's diverse, geographically dispersed sites, ensuring that there's a level of consistency when it comes to security, physical security controls, whether that's from a protocol standpoint and or technology perspective. I think our organization has definitely grown by way of merger and acquisition. So with that kind of framework, there's always, challenges around ensuring there's a continuity when it comes to protocols, practices, and technologies that are leveraged in the physical security space. So I would say that would be challenge number one. I think challenge number two is, getting our space or expertise to be looked at from a cross-functional perspective. And it's not all about us being company police, right? How do we get integrated into the business to be viewed and looked upon as risk mitigators, and not just, a tunnel vision thought process of we're just there to make sure the assets are protected holistically. So those would be my—
keeping the bad guys out is the perception everyone has of us, right? But it's access control and physical security goes way beyond that. Management efficiencies and the list is endless, right? So we do more than just keep bad guys out. Yeah. Great. Okay, Pradeep, can you tell us a frustration and challenge? Pradeep, you've got your microphone off.
Oh, sorry, Steve. Yeah. So I was saying challenges are many, but frustrations, it's just a mental state, I believe. So we'll not get into that frustrations we have at home, but challenges. First thing which comes to my mind as a challenge, as a physical security professionals, especially in this era of post-pandemic, which we are facing, it's of insider threat, because we have seen multiple employees behaving probably maybe because they are not closely associated, because they have that privilege to work remotely, completely remote or in the hybrid mode. So the company culture is not transfers to the employees, even the collaboration with the colleagues, all these things, since it is not happening in the office, the chances of an insider threat has increased at a certain level. So that is one part which is coming to my mind, and the rapid technological evolution. That is one part. So whenever new technology comes into the market, when we have to think, when we have to contemplate on whether we need to get it, we need to check the life cycle of that technology. Maybe it can become obsolete after a point of time. So all these things, when we have to think of, obviously it's a challenge. And even tailoring the solution for our need as a company, our geolocations wherever we have offices, and thinking of the diversity of the risk which we are facing, like maybe theft or vandalism or espionage or maybe a cyber attack, if you think in the infosec perspective of it, with having multiple locations across the world, especially so since we have right now companies are promoting work from anywhere kind of culture, like the one which we have in here in GoTo in my present company. So we have the privilege of recruiting employees across the world without thinking twice whether we have a nearby office anywhere. We can literally hire people from anywhere across the world. So we think of it as like having around 4,000 offices across the world rather than maybe in 2030 of numbers. But that's because every employee, we carry that risk of every employee working from home, whether it be a European company or an American company. We do legally are obliged in certain way when employees work from home. That is the diversity of risk which we are facing, along with the and one more thing which I can think of is on the public relations of managing the perception of security measures, whatever we implement within an organization, to avoid any kind of negative either public or employee backlash, which can happen by maybe we put any new process in place or bring in any new application or tool which we use for the as an employee touch point. So we have to think and try to avoid any kind of negative backlash which can happen. And regulatory part is another one which we can think of, even in a country like India, which where we already have approved that DPDP, the Data Protection Bill in 2023. So that is something we have to learn along with whatever we have been following in accordance with the GDPR, CCPA, or CPRA for that matter. So that is one thing we have to think of. And finally, something which I can think of is on the budget constraint, which we have always been facing throughout the years in physical security. Even if I take my tenure there in the government sector and the military side also, budget constraint is one biggest challenge which security managers has to face. All leaders, the company organizations wants a maximum with the minimum investment. So that is something which we have to, that's all I can think of, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, so you could probably say that the challenge is the long list of challenges.
Yeah, correct. Frustrations, I mean, I'll not get them. It's a mental state. We don't have to go till a frustration. We can manage the challenges within ourselves. That's what I believe.
Sure, great. Thank you for that. Okay, yeah. Christopher, can you tell us some big challenges and frustrations for you?
Yes, so challenge-wise, I'm going to take it from a slightly different approach here. I try to focus on the client first and educate them on what it is that they actually need. You probably all experienced this across the board, where a client will come to you and say, we think we need X, Y, and Z. And then it's our job to figure out what they actually need. Do they need the X, the Y, the Z, or do they maybe need a little bit of A and B if their budget allows? Now, unfortunately, within our industry, a lot of competitors and such, people similar to us who are less ethical, they try to add on, from A all the way to Z. And then the client finds out down the road that, half of it they don't use, and now they're out of budget, and then they suffer from it. And then, of course, weaknesses creep up because obviously this industry moves extremely quickly. So I think the frustration would be, how can we best educate our clients as to what they need, why they need it, and then how we would apply it within budget, under budget, and then, the best form of it if they could stretch their budget. So I'm just super simplifying things, but this way I think everybody viewing can really understand the basic nature of our industry. So it's our job to understand the complex things and make it understandable for everybody who's basically signing the checks, and then who can be affected by the very thing that they're hiring us for.
So often the customers really don't know what they need and what they want as well, right? So they might say one thing and they might need another, right? So the challenge is trying to get a better comprehension of their application and what they really require. They might ask for the world, but they might only need 2 or 3 things, like 5 codes that change permanently. That doesn't need to be time sensitive, and that's it, or something. Yeah.
So just a quick example on that would be maybe they want to downsize manpower, which seems to be the biggest thing at the moment. So in Singapore, we actually have our man guarding industry is a dying industry because all of the man guards, they're all of the older generation, and the younger generation don't want to step in. So something that Ademco did was they looked to a technological solution, such as doing virtual tours. So where the guards would patrol and find difficulties, now they can go from, say, a 5-man team, a 3-man team, down to 1 man potentially, depending obviously on the site. And they'd use a camera system which is set up by ourselves or whatever the client may have. And then at certain times, we could actually have our control center view all the way around the premises and do that on a regular basis. So it's kind of the direction we're finding. So that's kind of my focus on the more technologically advanced things that people aren't even aware of. So yeah, and other people are obviously looking to robots and things, but that industry is suffering just because they just don't provide the full solution. So it's either doing something with CCTV, reducing man guarding, or frankly getting higher quality guards that can do more and not fall asleep. I mean, everyone knows that that's one of the biggest issues in this industry.
Sure. Great. Fantastic. All right. Thank you all for those answers. We'll move on to the next question. And that is, what technologies do you foresee making the biggest impact on the industry? So perhaps we'll start this time around with Kevin. So it's about technologies making the biggest impact.
Yeah, so I think the buzzword in the industry now is AI, right? How do you incorporate AI to identify behavior that is, a compromise to the organization and or leads to some level of risk exposure, if you will, right? So whether it's in a warehouse environment versus, in other environments, how do you leverage that technology to minimize risk exposure or vulnerability, whether it's by way of vandalism, theft, pilferage, etc. But, and what are the other cross-functional usage from a safety perspective, monitoring high-risk areas that incidents or accidents may take place in an office and or warehouse environment. So I think that's kind of where the industry is going, if you will, Steve. And for me, being such a cross-functional, vertical, right? How do I get operations from supply chain to other operational functions to see the case usage for the technology from a productivity standpoint?
Sure. Can you give us perhaps one example of how AI can, improve the physical security industry? I think about it all day, every day, because of course it's, as you said, it's the buzzword, and all of these startups and companies raising endless amounts of money when you say to do with AI. And I recently did a bit of searching and chat GPTing to get some suggestions about, how we can incorporate AI, but keen to get your ideas.
Yeah, so for me, the most notable example that comes up is, operating, in environments that are 350 plus thousand square feet in size. You have entrance and exit points that could be points of vulnerability. If there's some behavioral norms that can be established and pointing out the anomalies when those entrance and exit, areas are penetrated, whether it's theft or vandalism related, or from a safety perspective, is the example that comes to mind for me.
So capturing the data and then analyzing it and then using that sort of automatically to come back into the system.
Yep, and send the proper alerts for further investigation or research to potentially identify behaviors that are out of the norm.
Sure, gotcha. Okay, great, fantastic. Thank you. Pradeep, can we go to you next with that question about the
Sure,
technology
Steve.
having biggest impact?
Yeah, for sure. So Kevin has already mentioned that is a buzzword we hear nowadays, AI, ML, and deep learning. So along with that, IoT also would help. IoT in the sense, along with maybe a 5G technology, with that kind of a speed of data transfer which can happen, more integration could happen in the vertical of security industry. Whatever devices which we use, it will become more smarter and interconnected, and it will obviously enhance the monitoring, the detection, as well as the response. It can enable that for us. And other technologies which comes to my mind as like maybe the facial recognition or the biometric can become more accurate with the enhancement which is happening in the field of data transfer technology. So it will become more efficient, and it should also be non-intrusive when we talk of facial recognition or a biometric system which we can have for access control systems. And when we talk of AI, again, drone technology can enhance, I mean, maybe for a surveillance of a large area where we have a whole campus in our organization where we need to have a patrolling where physically for a security guard to roam around and patrol, a drone technology can be used. I mean, future, I mean, it would be used right now also in other countries, but in India it is, I mean, more to be intruded upon, to be thought of for big campuses, maybe any critical areas we need to have a surveillance on, or maybe for a big event which can happen for a company where we need to have a bird's eye view of what is happening on the ground, and maybe to initiate a response as quick as possible. So then if we think of another technology, AR and VR also can be artificial and VR also can be used for in training purpose also, maybe replicating a real-time scenario and how we can respond, how physical guards also respond to that. So the virtual reality part can be used along with AR. So that is it. And edge computing is also another thing which is being used in the recent cameras which we procured for our company, even has a capability to analyze certain kind of data, so that the transfer between the networks or from the switches to the servers and all, it can be reduced as far as possible, because some kind of thing is happening. I mean, edge computing, as I understand, I'm not so technically well versed, but it should be, I mean, the processing of data happens at the point where it's being generated, so that it doesn't need to be transferred to a different location or a different space, and again analyzed from there, and again maybe transferred back or initiate a response procedure. So it definitely would reduces the latency and speeds up the decision making for any kind of response. And the last thing which comes to my mind would be the blockchain, which can be used again for an access control system, because it may be more foolproof than the systems which we are having right now. Even the mobile credentials also we started using recently in our office. I never thought it would be so seamless. And within the Genetech platform, it was like issuing any kind of credential is also so easy to make. So these technologies are coming in. So blockchain is one part, as I just reminded, the data integrity, everything would be in place if we can use it for identity verification in companies. So these are some of the things which are coming to my mind for the technologies which can come in future.
So many technologies around these days, isn't there, that can sort of enhance the physical security industry, from AI to blockchain to VR, AR, and you know, in the past, of course, we didn't have all these wonderful ranges of technologies. And so, can I sort of throw a question back to you? In all your experience of being in this industry for 30 odd years, like you've probably seen technologies come and make a presence and establish themselves as the sort of one technology. For example, what we had, you know, mag stripes in the 80s and RFID coming in the 90s, and then perhaps in the 2000s we started to go to Wi-Fi Bluetooth solutions. Do you think that we'll ever, there'll be one standard technology like per decade like we've had for the last 40 years. I mean, you can always go back to the punch card, technology in the 60s, right? That, was sort of leading control back then. Like, there's just too much now, isn't there?
That's we need to have that balance. I mean, it's a balance between, when we think of security and privacy also, it's again a balance. But technology, it would never be, it would be ever evolving. We cannot, change is inevitable for sure. So it won't stop, but we need to have that balance, as Major Subhishit mentioned in the initial thing. The human, the human instinct, it cannot be replaced by any machines. The senses which we have, the nuances of the human behavior, which a human security guard can monitor and respond, especially in any kind of unprecedented kind of situation, or maybe a difficult situation, maybe just to calm down escalated situation which happens within the site. It cannot be done by any robotic security guard or AI cameras for sure. So technology will ever keep evolving. Maybe before it was on the memory capacity, now it's more on the processing part, analytics, even the senses of smell. Maybe it will evolve, but to a certain extent, we need to have that balance between using technology. It should always be to augment the human potential, not to replace the humans. So that is my take on that.
Great, fantastic. Thank you so much. Christopher, can I
you,
ask
Steve.
you a question next?
Yes, of course. Okay, I'm going to cover a few here, and I'll try and do them as quickly as possible. So let's start with AI. Yeah, it is the buzzword at the moment, and I agree that it's going to essentially be. And I believe that AI will be the future of security. However, there's a great danger with AI, such as data capture, with facial recognition, things like that. I actually had a Fortune 500 company in the office yesterday, and what they said to us was, we can't have any means of tracking our staff because of obviously privacy concerns. So we can't do facial recognition. I suggested even gait tracking, and they're going to have to check up on that. So if anyone doesn't know what gait tracking is where you can check, you can identify somebody by the style of how they walk, which is as unique as a fingerprint. So I think that AI will help us to solve a lot of solutions extremely quickly and identify alarms, find out where those alarms have gone off in zones. They can tell whether somebody has breached say a fence or something, whether they're just approaching it. Basically, it will increase awareness and reduce reaction and response times, and obviously a lot more on that. Internet of Things, I think, is probably going to be another one of the biggest things. Now, everyone's aware of what happened with Ukraine, and what nobody actually talks about, which I'm kind of bewildered about, is the internet went down. It's gone. And that was until Elon Musk essentially offered his satellite network to be able to, reactivate their internet and give them some access for their forces on the ground. So something I've been working on for both the metaverse before I joined at EMCO, and now I'm at EMCO, is LoRa. And what that will do is it will actually keep, say, a premises online. So if a door is breached or a smoke alarm goes off, all of the basic things just underneath cameras can be sent over hundreds, if not thousands of miles for free without GSM costs, all of these sort of things. And we're actually looking at padlocks and things similar to what you're doing, but I'm looking at using LoRa because we have trucks using something very, very similar, which was why your product was very interesting. And frankly, it's a very good product. But one of the issues was when they go through tunnels, they lose the GSM and they also lose the satellite. So the LoRa would ping back to another truck behind them up to maybe 50 kilometers or so, and that will keep them online. So I think Internet of Things will be invaluable. VR and the metaverse. So looking at security with VR and the metaverse, why has that got value? Simply put, training. One of the biggest issues with a lot of developing countries is they're always calling in outside contractors. And we go in there, we develop training, and then of course the standards drop once the contractors leave, or they try to change things. and they're doing it too quickly without enough experience. So with VR training, you can create police scenarios, military scenarios, familiarization training for security guards on the ground, and even for staff. So you could even apply this for, say, a fire or maybe a security breach on premises, and they understand how to react or where to go. And it basically just gives people a little taste of experience. So that's kind of what I did within the Metaverse Chase Reality. And we work with Red Team Consultants, who are the main blog providers for physical security solutions and cyber security solutions. And just finally touching on blockchain. I believe blockchain will be immensely valuable into the future for people, individuals. But why I'm not keen on companies using it is because of the fees. The simple fact is, if the likes of Facebook, Google, and so on aren't using it for everyday use, that's because it would cost millions of dollars per day just in transaction fees. And I know there are other chains and things, but if there's one breach on the master keys, the whole system's offline. There's no bringing it back online at all. It's done. And I can speak from experience because I've actually developed crypto as I was developing the metaverse, and we gave ours away for free for educational purposes. So my focus is really on privacy, decentralization, and then, of course, staying up to date with the leading advancements, as well as helping to educate on the bread and butter of what we all do. There we go.
Fantastic. Cheers. Thank you. I covered lots of ground there, and there's probably about 4 or 5 topics that I could discuss with you for hours at a time for each one of those topics, especially the Internet of Things and LoRa and communication networks, because that's what we've been working on for the last few years, is trying to find the right communication network. I mean, we've seen some come and go, and some, like even AWS, are building their own communication network at the moment. And of course, we're working with the satellites going up everywhere, and we're working with a satellite company that sort of fills the gaps that the cellular networks can't cover as well. So certainly a lot of companies are having a go in a lot of these places, and it'll be very interesting to see all that unfold in the future.
I think the problem with that is the cost. But if you look at LoRa, the cost can be anything between $20 per node, but it will cover 100 miles if you have a line of sight, and then there's no other fee. Whereas GSM, you might be charging your client $100 per GSM chip. And for a lot of our clients using trucks.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be. I agree. It is developing.
I mean, for example, we're buying a SIM for $2, and we're getting 500 meg on that, which gives us 10 years to use the data. And an unlock command or a data extraction is only 8 to 10 bytes. So basically, for $10, we're never going to use 500 megabytes in that 10 years. And so that's it for data connectivity. We won't have any more costs.
This is what I like about your product, is you've gone from the example I gave there to you've actually found a way to reduce the cost. So that's the very positive thing about your product. The LoRa side is more for a network that we're looking at developing. We're not actually looking at chasing your thing. It's just because a current client has something similar, and they're just asking, can it be done? And we mentioned you because your solution seems quite effective.
Cheers. Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is, though, this virtual mobile network operator we're using is undercutting all of the mobile operators, yet the mobile operators are actually investing money and getting equity in this company that's undercutting them. And so we're seeing real ranges of data connectivity costs, and sometimes they can be $3 or $4 per unit per month as compared to $10 for 10 years, basically. So it's it's really interesting as the industry is still shaking around to try and find out what the market will handle, and we'll see how all that drops soon, whether prices will go up or come down. New technologies, it generally comes down, but we've seen with Uber how it was subsidized for so long, and maybe this virtual operator is subsidizing to keep the prices low to come in as a leader or try to gain that leader position. So it's just going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. So okay, great. And then the same question to Dr. Major, if you're not in any heavy traffic.
You can call me Subish.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the important things I felt that AR/VR. So most of the companies, the products which they are offering, the physical security field, they focus on the ensuring that the physical security is strong in sense of technology. That is, everybody is building better cameras with AI capabilities. They are developing better access control systems. They are developing faster access control systems. They are developing biometric systems. But nobody is focusing much on the training. And that's where this AR/VR, what rightly Pradeep and Christopher were speaking, I feel that there is a lot of job opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities for highly skilled security staff. And if we need to produce such high skilled security staff, we need to invest in their training. And the best part or the best way to invest is through AR/VR, because you can rightly train them in virtual scenarios, and you can create simulations for any type of scenario, whether it is armed threat, or it is some type of sabotage, or it is there is a misbehavior by an employee, or somebody running amok. So all these scenarios we can, so AR/VR is something I feel can disrupt in the field of training for physical security. That is something I'm seeing. And one second important thing is, I feel today the companies don't speak among themselves. The products don't speak among themselves. That is, example, you are not supposed to carry a gun in the office premises. Now somebody is carrying a gun. You walk through a door frame metal detector, DFMD. Now what happens? There is no security guard, but being a responsible employee, you are not supposed to carry, but you are carrying one. So what happens next? Your your DFMD device does not speak with your access control. The Johnson's Control, one of the major manufacturers, or Tyco, which is manufacturing access card, does not speak with your Garrett DFMDs, or it does not speak with Rapiscan DFMDs. So what happens? The person is able to access and go. So my interest will be in products where there is a AI controlling these two devices together simultaneously. That is, if somebody is carrying an illegal thing through our DFMD, next will not be able to swipe at the access control. His access is denied. So that is what at some technology I am looking at future, which can disrupt the market. Definitely, it will bring down the requirement of normal security guard. The skilled security guard may be still required, but the technologies need to speak among themselves. That is what
Sure.
I think he got muted.
Are you still there, Sabish?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, we lost the last few sentences there, but I think we're sort of running a bit behind on time. So thank you so much. We'll just move on to the next question. And if we can start with Pradeep this time round. So the question is, what do you think could be the hurdles in the adoption of innovative solutions within this space? So start with you, Pradeep.
Yeah, sure, Steve. So when we think of hurdles in security, I think first thing that comes to my mind is resistance to change. As humans, we always, whether it be employees or the management, everyone thinks that a new thing which comes could be disruptive, or it could be unnecessary. So these are the first challenges which we face when we think of bringing in a new technology into the workplace, especially on the physical security vertical. And Then comes the cost which it takes to bring in a new technology, especially the initial cost to bring in or to change anything which is existing, whether it be cameras, access control devices, anti-tailgate devices. So whatever the new technology which you're bringing in, whether it could be seamlessly integrated into our existing system or not, or how far the initial cost will go. So that is one challenge which I see. And obviously, we have to look into the regulatory and the compliance part, whether or if it's a startup which we are looking into who has come with a new technology, then we would have to definitely look into it. And the privacy concerns, whether the employee data, how it has been integrated to the company's AD, or what levels of data will be pulled out from the existing network of the company. That is something which we have to think of. And another thing which we always think of when we plan to bring in new technologies on the cybersecurity front, we need to get that clearance for whatever systems which we bring into the system. So getting an InfoSec clearance for anything which we bring in, it's a tough challenge, as we all know as security professionals. So that is one part. And again, we need to think of the maintenance part of it on a long-standing point of view, whether any specialized maintenance is required for that particular product or device or kind of system which we add into our existing bucket. So we need to think of the long-term perspective of it. And the last thing which comes to my mind is on the life cycle of any technology for that matter, as I had mentioned before. So we need to think, once we change something to innovative new technology which has come up in the market, how long would it persist? I mean, whether there is a point of time when it can become obsolete. We need to think in those angles also. So those are the things which is coming to my mind, Steve. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, the integration into existing systems and software and legacy behavior and all that sort of stuff is certainly something that we heard a lot from day one about coming into this industry, especially when we tried to implement our system, for example, in the hospitality with hotels. They've got a piece of software for property management system, and then a channel manager, and then a booking engine on their website, and then then they're using Excel spreadsheets, and then they're Zero or for their accounting or whatever, and that they just need all of these systems all need to talk together to then their key card systems is another piece of software that they're using. And so and then of course having to update in real time and whatever as well is important. So certainly we were hearing that is a massive hurdle for new adoption. So that's why we concentrated a lot on building our APIs from day one, so that and making them open, so we can go to third parties and say, hey, we get it. You've got your own software that you want to use. You don't want to learn ours. So here's the APIs. Choose the features of our cloud-based access control system that you want to add to your existing software and that you're using, or apps, or try and work with those companies and go for it. So we're trying to get over that hurdle by having APIs in place. So thank you for that. So we'll move on now to Christopher to have a go at answering that question about what you see as the hurdles in adopting innovative solutions in this space.
Yeah. So honestly, I think you guys pretty much covered just about everything, but it really comes down to cost. That's the long and the short of it in the very beginning, and who's going to go first, who's going to bear the most cost in the beginning. Even if you have proven technologies out there, a bit like Pradeep was saying, how long will it last? Is it really worth the money? Because it may last, it may be very good for the first year or two, but within 3 years, the industry may already be aware of how good AI would be. And again, talking about one of Elon Musk's other projects, such as Optimus Prime. I don't know whether any of you are aware of that, but it's a humanoid robot. It can already walk. It can already rebuild itself. Will that actually come back as a man guard? Because he's pricing these things at $20,000, and his AI is essentially close to being the best in the world. And I don't know whether anyone here is aware of it, but he actually founded OpenAI, and he's going to be launching another one soon. So yeah, when it comes to this, who's going to be the first to have, you know, these robots standing on a gate? Who's going to have to go backwards as innovation seems to come back to the physical as well as the AI? So it's a broad perspective of things. It's really understanding technology. We can all talk about bread and butter, you know, day in and day out, and talk about buzzwords, but what is actually the reality of tomorrow? And I think that's why people like ourselves sort of stand out, because we have that understanding, but who's prepared to actually listen to us and part with their money? And again, go first.
Right. Has anybody seen the Boston robotics dog with able to, of course, you know, turn knob sets now? Obviously, that was a big step forward in development of robotics.
Actually,
Yeah.
4 months ago, that was one of my main projects, working with Unitree's robotic dog. So yeah, so I was brought in to be the COO of the company for TTIT, and the main task was to get the robots working. And the problem is this goes back to one of my comments earlier. Does the client understand what it wants? Well, I won't say who the client was, but what they were was a hospital here in Singapore, and they seem to want the new cool image of having a robotic dog patrol. But when you tell them that there may be children running around that can crush, that if somebody pushes it while it's going downstairs, you know, it may fall on someone and kill them. You know, there may be other liquids on the floor, excreted by people in a poor state. This is why you need to understand everything about what it is you're telling a client, because it's easy to say, hey, here's the next BMW, it does X, Y, and Z, but you don't realize that it actually has known brake issues and gets a recall. And that's again why we all need to really know our stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot to think through, isn't there? When you bring a new technology in, I think AWS learned that the hard way, or Amazon, when they tried to introduce their Amazon Key and giving all the contractors and the delivery drivers access to people's houses. If the doors open, then of course dogs would run out or kids would run out, and so it certainly wasn't adopted at all.
It's not just that, but there's a lot of videos leaked online where you see a lot of these drivers that they're throwing packages on. So it comes down to the caliber of the people you hire. And of course, you know, if you pay peanuts, the old saying is you get monkeys. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but the simple truth is you really need people who are trained to a higher degree. And this is where I think, again, the metaverse and AI and VR training will come into effect. I think people need to get qualified and build up a reputation. And that's where brands for companies like yourself, as you develop your product, as you show that it works very, very well, this is where you will stand in the industry. It won't matter whether yours costs more or costs less. It's just the fact that it works and is trusted. Trust in our industry, I think, is number one.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we could debate that for hours as well, but we'll just move on now to Sabish to answer the question about what you see as the hurdles in adopting innovative solutions in this space.
The hurdles, the new product is coming into the market, so convincing the client and getting those products integrated with our existing infrastructure, that is one of the biggest hurdle, because client may not be convinced that convincing the client that the new product is much better than the existing infrastructure. Or example, somebody I heard speaking about Pradeep was telling anti-tailgating device. Now today also somebody asked me why anti-tailgating device. So one of the premium client which we have, I cannot name them, but worldwide they are present. They are very adamant on anti-tailgating device. They just say that your in and out punch record is must. I want to know that when is my agent going on, or when he's going in, or when he's going out. So the biggest hurdle is convincing the client that your technology, which is coming in the market, which is present now, is superior. So that is the first hurdle. The second hurdle, most of the platforms now, they are the technology which is coming, whether it is a AI-based solution, or it is an integrated solution wherein you can integrate the camera. There are a lot of softwares which is available. Companies are coming with softwares which can integrate your cameras and access control. It can manage your queue control in the cafeteria, in the pantry, or it can manage the crowd in your reception when a lot of interviews, candidates are lined up. So there are smart cameras which can do this. But the problem is uh, the platforms they are using. So the platforms, how secure they are, where they are storing the data, whether it is really getting stored in a secured cloud. Now AWS has its own cloud. Google has its own. Multiple companies are offering cloud services, but how secure they are, up to what degree of security they have taken. So it depends at how much you are paying for that service. So that is also an important. So one of the biggest hurdle is data security now, because you can buy a technology, but is it secure to use for your company? That is the biggest hurdle. And are we qualified to uh, test that? Or as a physical security professional, can I, because I'm a vet by profession in last 20 years, I can tell you what physical security measure I have to put at the perimeter or what I have to put for a client who has newly come. But can I test the product and how secure it is? So am I qualified enough to ask the question even to an IT engineer or a data security engineer that how secure this is? So these are the main hurdles I find. I feel myself underqualified to understand this product. So that is what is the biggest hurdle I feel.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, yeah, security is more than just saying buzzwords as well, right? Like 256-bit SSL security. So that means it's all fantastic and you should trust us. So yeah. Anyway, some really good points there. Thank you so much. And we're just going to move on to the next part of the panel. And Pankaj is just going to explain the next part to us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Steve. Thanks to our panelists for the insightful conversation so far. I mean, we could have kept going on with this for hours and hours, but we have to move on to the next segment, which is the rose session. And I especially love this session because in this session, the startups are able to present their solution and get a brutal feedback, honest feedback from the experts. And I think we should not sort of ignore that opportunity, because we have experts sitting in the panel and they may have evaluated hundreds of different kind of physical security solutions in their professional life. So Steve, why don't we go through a very quick pitch of digital keys and then get feedback questions from our panelists. Please go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I've got a short 2-minute pitch deck that I'll just quickly take us through. So let me just share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, Steve.
Great. Okay. You can ask me questions at any time during or afterwards, but yeah, I'll go through it fairly quickly. Australians have got a reputation for talking fast, so I'll try not to go through it too quickly. So yeah, I'm the CEO and co-founder, as you know, of Digital Keys, and we deliver 5G OT connected smart locks and the software that controls them. So the physical security space really hasn't changed that much in 200 years. Most of us are still using the same technology to secure our assets, metal keys and mechanical locks, as we were using 200 years ago, and the same technology to control access to our assets as well. So, and this causes massive expenses and costs to many, many different industries. For example, $30 billion a year in cargo theft. Tools being stolen from construction sites, for example, can be around $1 billion a year. And copper being stolen from meter boxes and things like that, huge costs to different industries. So we think that the electronic access control options in the marketplace at the moment aren't that much better than the metal key options. So we've seen Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and RFID systems all being hacked recently, and they also require a lot of on-site equipment and network infrastructure. Lots of these technologies now are dated and old, and for example, the mag stripes, of course, demagnetize when held against a mobile phone, so that's why people are often getting locked out of their hotel rooms. And of course, a lot of these technologies and systems are still disconnected. They're not connected to the internet, so you can't take advantage of all the different big data analytics and all of those, connecting to all those other wonderful technologies such as AI that we've talked about. So our company has built a complete end-to-end 5G OT smart access control solution, including a IoT platform hosted at AWS. And with the SIM card inside the padlocks, at the moment supplied by a virtual mobile network operator. The product can work out of the box in 40 countries on about 30 different mobile networks. So here is one of the two products that we've recently launched, our smart padlock. And our products, to emphasize again the points of why we've been doing this, it's all about not having to have any on-site power, on-site equipment, or any on-site network infrastructure. And because we can use a deep sleep mode, we're also able to get a longer battery life, and then we can offer a variety of opening methods as well as we bring the locks online, such as a remote unlock from anywhere in the world. So we've built this complete end-to-end solution, not only including the smart locks themselves, but also digital keys apps, asset management software, and then the APIs and the platform itself hosted at AWS. So as I explained before, APIs is all about other third parties to be able to pick and choose what features of the connected solution they want to add to their own software and their own apps. So we have a business model that is SaaS. We think the industry should handle $3 to $5 per smart lock per month. This is based on the idea that people are paying between 5 to 15 companies, $5 to $15 per month to use GPS trackers. We have a GPS tracker inside our smart padlocks. Certainly, this is a topic that has sort of come up, the idea of regular charges to use access control, because traditionally there hasn't been an ongoing SaaS fee with RFID or even Wi-Fi Bluetooth solutions, but we're starting to see now this coming into play. There's good margins on the hardware, but we also think that this is a big platform play. So we're interested in bringing a lot more security products and IoT devices onto our platform that we've spent the last couple of years rebuilding on AWS. So as I sort of explained in the introduction, we brought a product to market in 2019, sold it to some of these big customers, and they're all saying, yeah, we want more, please. But unfortunately, we had to pretty much go back to the drawing board and rebuild and redesign away from Huawei. So we're getting a lot of traction at the moment. Our low-hanging fruit is in electricity companies, in the logistics use on shipping containers, and in construction sites. So the reason why we're seeing this traction is because, again, it's the first time that connected access control can be available for use out on the street without having to have any Wi-Fi or routers or modems or mesh networks or anything like that in place. So if you can get mobile coverage, then our product will work there, and then some. These networks can go 20% beyond and work deep underground. And as I explained before, we're now working with a satellite company that will fill in the gaps that the cellular networks don't cover. So in addition to myself, I come from a background in as an asset manager in 3 different local governments. We've got a team of software developers and electronic engineers, including Max, and experts in the field, including Colin. So that's the end of our short presentation. It's we invite people to join us as we unlock the future, and yeah, we're excited to basically satisfy the demand that we're getting from all these different, mostly critical infrastructure companies at the moment, and get the product out there in the marketplace. So that's the presentation.
And let's take some questions. Okay, who wants to go first? Yeah, Christopher, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I have a few things to say, but I'm not sure how they will come across, frankly.
Go hard.
So,
yeah.
I mean, do you want the honest truth, or
Please give it to me.
Yeah, definitely honest.
Frankly, your product, I think, solves a real pain point, a real need. However, my concern would be the likes of I don't know whether people have seen Jerry Rig Everything. It's a YouTube channel, and he basically has taken these types of locks on his channel, and he's shown how to hack it in a few minutes, and he explains it step by step, and he's doing it to actually help manufacturers reinforce them as a very positive thing. So one of my concerns was, in your video, you actually showed the device being taken apart. Now, I wouldn't have done that, because you've essentially shown bad actors the wall thickness, where it's weakest, how to attack it. Myself, from my background working with the government, we'd actually look at this sort of thing, and then we'd attempt it, and then we give that feedback. And then, of course, like I was saying earlier, with one of our clients, I think they use a Nauticum device, or at least they used to. And Nauticum is essentially the same thing as yours, but the problems they've had is, again, it's going to be the same as anybody, frankly. Losing satellite connectivity, losing GSM. And this is why my view was to go to something like LoRa, which is, if you have enough trucks on the road, even in a remote place, you're not going to lose connectivity. And then, of course, you also remove all cost. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not trying to be too harsh. I'm trying to give you the respect of things you can maybe take away, but maybe you've solved these things already. And I think that would actually be really positive if you could say, we've thought about these things, we're aware of these other companies, and yes, of course, we're addressing it. And I think if you do that now, it will actually discourage other people from trying to attack it.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's 2 or 3 really interesting points that you bring up there, which we've thought about in depth and which we believe we have addressed. And so the first one is that we don't call ourselves lock makers. We're not lock manufacturers. We're the smarts behind the lock. So I think those YouTube videos that you're referring to, I've seen plenty of them. I've seen a lot of the sort of cheap Bluetooth locks just being pulled apart in 2 seconds flat, and circuit boards been able to be ripped out, or batteries ripped out. And so so we deliberately went on a search for a robust, strong lock casing that already exists in the marketplace that can handle the elements and be strong enough to handle people trying to break into it or jamming them open or whatever. And so so we found this one that is a basically, we take RFID keycard locks basically off the shelf, and we throw out their circuit boards, and then we put in our 5G circuit boards and make it work with the local motor and all that sort of thing, local ports. So so we deliberately chose this one because it had been used out, for the last couple of years on shipping containers and back.
So it's proven, time tested, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So basically, and it's passed all the certifications around drop tests and physically being able to not break into and things like that. So so we know this casing is has already been out and used in the environment, so that's why we chose that. But so you're sort of touching more on the physical side of it with those two videos. I mean, of course, there is that point as you're making about why that show people the weak points. I mean, if once we get this product out there, then it's not going to take long for one person to put a video up showing, trying to get into it. And because it's been out there for a long time now anyway, we haven't really seen anybody do that yet. So again, another reason why we chose it. And the LoRa one is really interesting. So we were approached by the LoRa Alliance about a year or so ago, and had a really good deep look into what they're offering. And in Australia, it's been interesting. We've been totally ignored by, anybody that's in the access control space or the physical security space or in the large asset management space, because there has been more of a leaning towards LoRa and thinking that that's going to be the be-all and savior of communications technology over Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. But I come from a background of working in local governments, and so I was trying to pitch our product to local governments to improve their asset control for all their different assets, having experienced the pain firsthand myself. And they're like, no, we're not interested because we're building our own LoRa network. And I found that actually quite laughable to think that local governments, who struggle even with the 3 R's of rubbish, rates, and what was the other, roads, they struggle with just their core business to be able to then build a mobile network better than the telcos that have invested billions of dollars in this over the last 30 years. So, who in the LoRa, who is building it, and where are they getting the money to build it, and where are they getting all the technology to build this, and where are they getting the permissions to put all the different towers up and all that sort of stuff. So whilst LoRa has some benefits, I still think that there's no way that they're going to be offering a better system compared to the mobile operators that are spending tens of billions of dollars on this and have so for a long time. So that's sort of my response to your points.
Thanks a lot, Christopher. Is there any other question or comment, or probably some insights, recommendations? Pradeep?
I wanted to ask one question.
Please.
So Indian geography, and so I'm asking all the questions pertaining to my industry because that's one of my concerns. So if you consider major BPOs, which are very much human intensive industry, most of the industries across geography, we are providing lockers to the employees. Can we solution these smart padlocks for lockers also? Because I'll tell you what is the concern. Once an employee logs in once he joins the organization and he is assigned a locker, he never vacates that lock. He puts his personal padlock. So what as an organization I want is, the moment his shift is over, automatically the lock should open. It should be what you call integrated with his shift timings or his work timings. Is it possible? And can we have these miniature versions, because lockers are not so big, they are small. So can we have miniature versions of this padlock? Is it possible? Power is not a problem because we can always give an UPS power, but I don't want wires going around all the locks. But is it possible? That's what was my question.
Yeah, good question. I mean, short answer is that yes, it certainly is, and yes, it's a good application for this technology. However, on the other hand, we also saw a huge demand for this for the locker application as well, and we were talking to a number of lock makers and the cam lock style lock makers, as well as the cabinet and locker manufacturers themselves, and who were telling us their customers are constantly asking for a connected solution like what we've been building. And they said they're constantly missing out on massive orders of 50,000 banks of lockers to go into all the KPMG buildings or across the world, or into big apartment buildings or whatever, to facilitate deliveries. So yeah, we understand that the locker application, huge demands and opportunities for it. However, we deliberately chose not to go after that application because of the hardware price at the end of the day. So the existing cam locks used on lockers seem to be the common use rather than padlocks. I mean, of course, you mentioned, of course, people want to bring their own padlock, but the big companies want to buy a solution that has a cam lock built into the locker door. And even if it was electronic, they would never pay more than $50 US basically for it, the cam lock. And the mechanical ones sell for $4 or $5, right? So yeah, there just was not the margins there for us to go after that application, especially considering the NBOT module that we have inside the lock is $13 just for the module. So we deliberately chose to stay out of that area, but there's no reason why people can't just buy the padlocks and put them on and then control access themselves. But yeah, we just don't think that lockers is the play at the moment. We're looking for the low-hanging fruit that's going to be ordering lots and can afford to pay for it without an established pricing point.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that clarity.
Yeah, I do think for an application of lockers for employees or for that matter, I think a combination lock would work rather than spending so much for your type of a smart lock. There's even like the IKEAs which we have, IKEA buildings which we have for customers, what they provide, it's a combination which is quite effective as far as the effectiveness of the user is concerned. And Steve, I would like to ask if there is any provision to understand, like in access control system, we have a magnetic contact by which we understand that the door is in a closed position or an open position. For this lock, it's a padlock design. So whether it is holding that chain or holding that latch, is there a way to identify that? Find that in the system or online, or is there a provision for any kind of mechanism which can hold that there is a possible attempt to breach it? Maybe as Christopher was saying, it's as easy as if you try to jimmy open it, maybe with a sledgehammer or something. Could it just break away and maybe shown as, as far as the slides which you have shown, the losses which had happened, it's hopefully would be a jimmy open case, right? So same thing could happen in this lock also, right?
Yeah, so this is one of the main features of this solution that we're offering is the inbuilt tampering alarms, basically. So if anybody attempts to jemmy this open, then within almost milliseconds, we can get a connection because there's a sort of a heartbeat going tied specifically to a sensor, which you can see on the circuit board here. It said not to show the insides of the lock, but I'm showing you now. So there is a little sensor here that rests up against the glass, and so if it just comes off the glass a fraction, then it'll send a quick notification to the lock owner to say somebody is now attempting to break into this lock, and so it can then either be somebody can then call the police or go out and visit on site, or they could have some sort of integration to CCTVs or cameras or whatever that switch on, or they could start then communicating with them. So yeah, again, that's the sort of whole idea of trying to build the APIs as well as all the basic features, the obvious one being the tampering alarm as well. So yeah.
Okay, so there's no kind of camera or sensors on that door latch side or something which can ensure that the door is locked on the right place, or it is just locked as a separate entity?
We know basically when the lock is unlocked. So it just goes into this hole here, and so there's a message on the lock that tells you if it's unlocked now. You can see the unlock icon, and then if you just enter the pin again, it'll just change to locked basically. So now it's locked. So you can use the network and the connectivity in a variety of different ways. So we can program over the network to use with NFC unlocking, so that we don't always have to do the remote unlocking over the network. And we can wake up just the lock to use for the remote unlock or wake it up to use for the PIN. So there's plenty of different ways we can use the network is the sort of short answer.
All right, that means if the lock is in a locked condition, and if it's in your pocket, not at the container door or maybe within the chain, that it will be shown as locked virtually, right?
Yeah, and you can
Okay.
hit a remote unlock button and a remote lock button, and then rule out all the other opening methods if you just want to keep using and being aware of the status of being locked and unlocked and having that one control or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. One more wild thought which is coming to my mind. If you use a Faraday's bag or something, just cover up the lock, will it go out of the network?
Sorry, can you say that one again?
Like a Faraday's bag, like a Faraday's cage, the complete network gets cut out. If just like a pouch, if you just cover the lock, will it get completely out of the network and out of the system? Is there a possibility?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. I haven't had that one very often yet. So, we have an antenna up here that then the signals go through this armored glass plate, and of course stainless steel around, which is can be an issue for the Faraday cage business. So we've certainly done a lot of optimization work to get around that. But yeah, I guess if somebody put a some pretty heavy stainless steel around it, it would stop the signal. But that's something to think about. I mean, in terms of unlocking, we encourage the user behavior to unlock locally on NFC, and then we still get the live notifications through the phone, and so we don't always have to have the lock connected. So if somebody puts the Faraday cage on there, we can still go through with the NFC unlocking. But I guess if that would be an interesting one to test, trying to put a cage around it to block the tampering sensor is what you're suggesting, right?
Correct.
That'll be an interesting one to try out. Yeah.
Can I just ask quickly?
Thank you, Steve.
Sorry. Can I just ask quickly regarding jamming? Because obviously you have two frequencies, which is fantastic for redundancy, but some people can get devices from, I think, $100, which will jam the GSM, the SIM card. But if they're attacking a $1 million shipping container, they may have like the $1,000 one, which can jam essentially the entire spectrum. Would that let you guys know that basically it's gone offline, and then you can deal with that? Because obviously that would be great, but has any testing been done on this at all?
Not for that specific example or scenario. I can sort of see how that would be a useful thing in that particular application to test. There is a function inside AWS called a shadow device, basically. So we know immediately when the lock is connected or when it's disconnected, and through the back end. So we would know immediately then if it was online or being used, and then it suddenly wasn't. I mean, there's just so many different applications for this technology. I mean, we've got 12 sort of applications on the website which we're getting the most demand for, and so you could be testing all the different scenarios in dozens and dozens of different applications for weeks, months, years. But I mean, that's another interesting one to think about, if we get some the logistics shipping container customer wanting to order bulk from us.
I asked because of the high value, and a few of our clients currently they're getting us to use AI to scan the shipping containers, but they're looking at upgrading to locks similar to yours. So this is also why your product is very interesting. But my concern would be if someone had one of these affordable devices, they jam it, they then break the lock, and then and by break the lock I mean they cut the metal, and then they just leave the lock as it is, so they can release the jamming then. So it only takes a few seconds. It might just seem like a glitch. Will your lock know that the metal's being cut? Is there a wire through the middle? Because technically you're not breaching it up, You're just physically cutting the 2 bits in the loop.
Awesome question. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, these are all really good questions. So, yeah, I'm glad that we've got the security experts here to
Sorry, it's
raise
just my
stuff
background.
outside perhaps of what normally we get asked by our customers or partners. So, yeah, I mean, and yeah, that's would be an interesting one to test and find out. I mean, there is a sort of a standard response I can offer in that you know, this is technology that exists on cellular networks, but it doesn't. So you're talking about a GSM application, which is more, I think, more specifically a technology related to 2G or 3G. So you know, this is a technology that's literally almost the 5th generation. So you know, so maybe there are some more advanced features that we could explore in the future with the mobile operators if we found this was going to be a concern in this particular application.
Yeah, I was actually talking about devices which cover the full spectrum. You can find these things on eBay, for goodness sake. It's a shame that they exist, but I think the awareness of it means that perhaps you can just add something in which would feel a vibration or something. You know, there could be some accelerometer like a phone has, and that would be enough. So all I'm saying is, even if you felt that there was enough movement on it, it would probably be enough for you to get an alert and just a checkup. That would give the reassurance, I think. And the same response time for any other.
We do have an accelerometer built into this, and we
Great.
have been taking it. I mean, that's why this one has got this shake to wake at the moment, because the accelerometer is waking it up. We are turning off and on that feature based on the application, and you know, we've got the tampering alarms happening differently to the wake up and the normal connection for unlocking. So it's sort of running on almost a different system, the tampering alarm. So yeah, certainly we could tailor the product so that, you know, if it detected someone drilling, trying to cut it across, or with a chainsaw or whatever, then yeah, getting the alarm out as quick as possible, you know, over the satellite network is possible, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. These are really good questions.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of having physical security leaders on the call, right?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Steve could not stay for the call because he had a flight to take, but I'm sure that we'll be able to connect with him and get his feedback separately in one session. It's time now, but yeah, again, really appreciate everybody's insights, your feedback on the solution. I think that's extremely important, because that gives us even more areas to think about on what could be the right product features for the future, what could be the go-to-market strategy, who might be the competitors that we need to think about, and so on and so forth. So really, really appreciate your presence, this conversation today. And I think this is not the last conversation that we are having. We need to reconnect again, probably in a couple of weeks, to explore how we can work with each other, support each other, collaborate with each other, right? So again, thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you everyone for attending, and for your wonderful questions and insights. And yeah, certainly, we were only really scratching the surface on so many different issues and so many different fronts. And so yeah, hopefully we can explore some of these in more detail again in the future. And yeah, thanks again, everyone, for participating. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Pankaj.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys. See you later.
Thank you, everyone.